What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Cave Sports. I am your another co-host this week, Feel the Burn, here with Soul Controller. How you doing, Soul?
Thank you. I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here, as usual.
Awesome, as usual. Yes, sir. We also have Source Glory here with us today, riding shotgun. How you doing, Source?
Doing well, Zach. Doing very well. Feel the burn. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on blast like that. Feel the burn.
No worries. It's all good. It's all good. Yes, sir. Once again, Abra Suamente could not make it today, so shout out to him. Hopefully, we can have him back on next week, per usual. This week for our show, we will be recapping and previewing the NFL wildcard weekend. We'll be talking about some of our own awards that we have to hand out for a couple of the categories that we wanted to give our 2 cents on. We will go over the playoff landscape, and then we will finish up with some MMA chat with Source. So without further ado, let's get it going with the sports picks.
Hey, yo, what up? It's your boy Slava Medvedenko coming at you with some picks for wildcard weekend. I'm coming at you from my car, so don't mind the background, but we're finna get these picks in. So, yeah, let's start off with, we got 6 games. It's going to be a fun one. So, let's start off with, what is it? Seahawks and Niners. I'm going to take Seahawks plus 9.5. I don't think the Niners are going to win. I really feel that way, but with the money line being at like minus 500, and you got Brock Purdy, rookie quarterback, in the playoffs, I don't think he's going to destroy the Seahawks like that, but I do think the Niners defense will take them home. I don't think they're going to win by a whole lot, so that's why I'm taking Seahawks plus 9.5. That money line Niners is just too juicy, so I'm going to take the points with the Seahawks at that one. I think Geno Smith is good enough to keep it close. Next up, we got the Chargers-Jaguars. Oh, man, Jaguars are on fire right now. Young team, hungry, coached by one of my favorite coaches, Doug Peterson. Shout out Eagles, Super Bowl. But I just think the Chargers are going to be the more dominant team. Austin Eckler is going to get more of the workload that we've been used to seeing in the past. I know they kind of like held him back on his snaps and his touches this year because they wanted him to be healthy for playoffs. But now playoffs are here and he's going to be unleashed. Combine that with Justin Herbert and all their core being healthy, with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen being ready to go. So I'm going to take Chargers money line. I got it at minus 140. Take that to the bank. Next up is Bills, Miami Dolphins playing in Buffalo. The line's minus 13.5. I think the money line's like minus 800. So we're obviously not taking Bills money line. And I do think the Bills are going to cover that spread. So I'm taking Bills minus 13.5. They got so much to play for. A lot of motivation, trying to get some dubs in for their boy DeMar. Side note, shout out DeMar. I'm glad he's doing well. So because of that, I do think the Bills are going to pull this one off pretty easily. Dolphins don't have Tua, so they really don't have a lot of weapons to get those points up. So yeah, I'm taking Bills. Then next up, after that, so it was, okay, then it's, I'm not going in order here of games. So next up, I got Cowboys, Bucks. Buccaneers are underdog at home. I'm going to take Tom Brady. I know the Bucks haven't been playing that well, but it's playoffs. The GOAT's at home. I just feel like when Tom Brady's an underdog, why are you going to bet against him? And it's the playoffs. And fuck the Cowboys too. So you already know. I got Bucks money line. I think it's plus 120, plus 130, something like that. So yeah, I'm running with that. Next up, we got the Giants versus Vikings. I'm gonna take the Giants +3 on this one. The Vikings, I don't know. They have their good moments. They have their bad moments. As far as the Giants go, I just think they're a little bit more consistent. I think they can keep it a little bit close. They got a lot of fight in them this year. A lot of people counted them out, and they proved otherwise. So I like Danny Dimes and Saquon keeping it close. I know Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson are really talented, but I just think the Giants defense can hold them to a close game. So I'm taking Giants +3 in that one. And then last but not least is Bengals Ravens. Lamar Jackson is not going to play this game, so I'm going to take the Bengals -9.5. You got Joe Burrow, a.k.a. Joe Shiesty. That boy cold as fuck. He about to go in. He's about to drop dimes and dots to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and all over the place. So I'm taking them -9.5 at home. So you already know. So yeah, those are my picks. And I'm going to do a little parlay that I'm going to do too. Is I'm going to do the Chargers money line, Bengals -9.5, Bucks money line. That should be the parlay. 3-team parlay. Don't want to get too crazy. So yeah, that again, Chargers money line, Bucks money line, and Bengals -9.5. So yeah, guys, shout out Cave Sports. Shout out to all the homies doing their thing. Ride with me. Hope we make some cash this weekend. So yeah, let's get it, boys and girls.
There it is. Appreciate Slava as always for those picks. Don't know if it was glitching for anybody else. That was glitching heavy for me. But it sounds like we had Seattle +9, Chargers money line, Buffalo with the points, Buccaneers money line, Giants +3, Bengals -9.5, and then that parlay of Chargers money line, Bengals -9.5, and Tampa money line. All valid picks to me. I liked what Slava had and his thought process behind it. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with that. Definitely, especially with the way that those teams have been performing last few weeks. So yeah,
for sure. All right, so Sol and I have been talking a little bit about what we wanted to do today for the NFL recap with what's been going on, what transpired this season. We didn't have fantasy news to go over or fantasy updates to go over, so we decided to just run through some awards here. We're gonna do offensive MVP. My choice for offensive MVP is Patty Mahomes. Man, I just don't really know if there's a lot of words left to say about how good Patrick Mahomes is. Came in the league, sat the first season behind Alex Smith, learned a lot, learned Andy Reid's offense and that system, and the rest is history. Came in at the end. I think he started the last game of the season his rookie year, and then since year 2 has been dominating the league. Lost Tyreek Hill. I thought that was going to really impact his production this season, but if you look at these stats, definitely did not. I believe he broke the all-time yards record in a single season this year. He has 5,000 over 5,000 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a 77.6 completion percentage. Absurd numbers from Mahomes. My 2023 offensive MVP.
Nice. Yeah, so for me, it's actually kind of just very ironic that they're from the same team, but it was Travis Kelce for me. I just feel like this guy has been a pillar on the team. He's always a safety net and so dependable. Also, just exceeds expectations for his position. He's outperformed a lot of the top receivers in the league, so it's amazing performance. But yeah, 110 receptions for 1,338 yards, 12 touchdowns, averaging 12.2 yards per catch. It just really doesn't get better than that. I mean, averaging 12.2 yards per catch, that means it's like an automatic first down on most plays. So yeah, this guy's amazing.
I think something that you're not going to see on this stat line is, from at least what I was watching with Travis Kelce, was how many clutch receptions he had this year where, down and distance got to have it, and Patrick could just rely on Travis. So for that offense, that was the number one target, and it benefits when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes throwing to you. So the clear number one tight end in football, I don't think anybody can question that anymore.
No, not at all. Definitely not.
All right, moving on to defense. This was a unanimous selection by us. Defensive MVP, Nick Bosa from the San Francisco 49ers. Man, coming off of an injury-plagued season last year, it was great to see Nick come back in and if anything, hasn't missed a step, maybe even got better. Was the sack leader for the NFL this year. That's always a plus. Unfortunately, no interceptions, but 2 forced fumbles, 18 and a half sacks. I think gone are those days of like Strahan when he would put up those ridiculous numbers and, Reggie White. But this is the closest we're probably going to get to that level of greatness. And again, him being healthy, I think, is what was the key for Nick to be our defensive player of the year or defensive MVP.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, he's averaging at least 1 sack per game, which that by itself is, worthy of MVP status, so it really doesn't get better than that, especially for a defensive lineman. A lot of times you see defensive linemen are the ones who are making the way for other pass rushers, like blitzing linebackers or strong safeties to, make the play. This guy's doing the dirty work and getting the job done on his own. So, well done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. He's, the Niners have been touted as the best defense in the NFL, and he is the most important part of that defense, aside from the coaching staff, which we'll get to later. But, without having that defensive pass rush or that premier pass rusher to create pressure, it just gives the quarterback all sorts of time in the pocket to be able to find, every route that he's trying to look for, every options out there. So when you're able to get to the quarterback, it makes your linebackers better, like you said, because then they can blitz or they can stay back in coverage even, and then your secondary obviously benefits when you get pressure on the quarterback. So shout out.
Right. Also, I mean, just to add on to what you're saying, but if it's not obvious, it disrupts the offensive game plan. Is that all of a sudden, the offense doesn't want to run towards his side. They're adding extra blockers on his side, to try to balance him out. And so, it's fun to watch. I love those players who just fuck up the whole thing, Yeah,
that's right. That's right. For sure.
To watch. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Next up, we got Rookie of the Year. My Rookie of the Year that I went with is Kenneth Walker, the second or junior from the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's also on a lot of people's lists of Fantasy Player of the Year or like Fantasy Steal of the Year or like Hidden Gem. I didn't draft him in many leagues, but I had him in one league, and the one league I did, I'm really glad I had him there in the middle of the season when he took that lead back role in Seattle. Rashad Penny went down with injury, and they literally handed the running game to Kenneth Walker, and he ran away with it. This is, from a rookie, you get 228 attempts, over 1,000 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns, and a 4.6 yards per carry. Like, that's incredible, especially from that offense too, which they lost a key piece in Russell Wilson, and it looks like it didn't even really matter because they made the playoffs and they really relied heavily on the legs of Kenneth.
Yeah.
Who did you have for Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually Garrett Wilson. It's probably a little biased because he helped me win some fantasy games, but nonetheless, nonetheless, look at his stats: 83 receptions for 1,103 yards, 4 touchdowns. Maybe not the best rating for touchdowns, but 13.3 yards per catch. It's really the yardage and the receptions for me. He's helping to move the ball, and from like an early start in the season, he just he was doing his job. And I mean, this guy's not he's got great, excellent speed, but he's only 6 foot tall. It's not like he's towering over cornerbacks. So I just love to see like receivers like this who've got the skills down, great route running, know how to expose the defense. And he's doing it at such a, so early on in his career. And even with a very questionable quarterback situation, he was doing it with 2 different quarterbacks. Maybe a little bit better performance with one quarterback than the other. But if this guy was working with a top 10 quarterback, his stat line would probably be even better than that. I definitely see him being no less than a top maybe 15 receiver next season, and then just moving up, from that. But yeah, would you agree with that? Feel the burn?
I would. Garrett Wilson really developed into a weapon that you had to look out for, no matter who was under center for the New York Jets. Like you said, had better production under one quarterback than the other. Obviously, Mike White was the better quarterback for Garrett Wilson's production. But nonetheless, still an impressive season for this rookie, and the future is bright in New York with Garrett Wilson lining up on the outside. And that's something that I think that team missed, is having that legitimate wide receiver threat.
Yeah.
And then, when they get Breece Hall back next year, that's a pretty potent offense if they can stay healthy and develop the right way. That's going to be one of those that you draft in fantasy and that you like to watch on Sundays. When there's up on the TV. So, shout out Garrett Wilson.
Hell yeah! Cheers, Garrett. Thanks for those dubs.
That's always great, huh? Hey, so who did you have to round out our awards with for Coach of the Year?
DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator for the Niners. So as you mentioned earlier, it's just, the Niners defense have had such an unbelievable season. I don't remember the exact stat, but I think it was 7 games in a row where they shut out teams in the second half. Do you recall that stat by chance? Yeah. So
it was
something ridiculous like that. Yeah. And then they're the only team this season to hold a team to 0 when they played the Saints. I'm pretty sure it was the Saints 13-0. This is the NFL. It's ridiculous for any team to not be able to make one score, even if it's just a field goal. So the fact that the Niners were able to do that to any team in the NFL is just, that's incredible in itself. But it's not. It's no coincidence that we both chose Bosa as the defensive MVP for in our selection, and and obviously DeMeco Ryans is the guy to, he's the mastermind behind that. He was a defensive player himself. University of Alabama All-American, played 9 years in the NFL for the Texans and then for the Eagles. So, this is one of those coaches who he's done it. He's not going to, it's one of those situations where he's asking players to do what he knows can be done because he's done it. And, cheers to DeMeco Ryans, man. What an incredible season.
I will have to agree with you. It seems like that defensive coordinator position in San Francisco is producing greatness. First, it was Bob Saleh, who now is a head coach for the New York Jets, who we just talked about. I fully expect DeMeco to have plenty of interest and, a lot of offers thrown his way to become head coach. you're starting to see a trend now, I think, with football, or at least with these guys that are, getting these jobs, is they're former players. You see Vrabel in Tennessee.
Yep.
As the one I think that really broke through as one of those popular players that switched to coaching, because he was a stalwart in the Patriots defense. And now you see, guys like DeMeco Ryans, who another respected former player, all pro, I believe, or Pro Bowler at least.
Yeah.
And, like you said, been there, done that, right? Like there's no better person to trust, to teach you how to do your job than someone who has also done your job. And
right.
I think it speaks volumes to how much trust that defense has in him. And it's paying dividends, I believe, for that team. Not only did they hold, or do they have that stat of holding those teams scoreless in the second half of games for that long, but I also saw a stat that no team won a game the week after playing the Niners this year, which is incredible.
Oh my God. Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
insane.
You go play the Niners, you're going to lose the next week. Like, it's a given. I think they're 0-15 the week after playing San Francisco this year, which is unheard of. So definitely, I like your choice right there. And it's outside the box thing, because normally this is given to head coaches, but DeMeco Ryans, Twin deserves this.
Definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I stick to the traditional head coach for mine. I'm going with Brian Daboll of the New York Giants. God, that picture's awesome. Brian Daboll was a guy who coached with New England and then coached with Buffalo before he got the Giants job. And he was a candidate that a lot of people had their eye on in Buffalo for how he transformed Josh Allen. He was in that class of coaches that got hired recently with Brandon Staley with the Chargers and with Bob Saleh, like we mentioned, came from the Niners, went to the Jets. There was really no expectation for the Giants this year. A lot of negative chat about Danny Dimes and that team being in that division with the Eagles and the Cowboys, and even the Commanders, all teams who have made playoffs recently. And, everyone's kind of dogging on the Giants. The way he turned that team around, first-year head coach, is amazing. He really instilled a culture that has changed the outlook on that team. Took them to the playoffs. If they weren't in that division, maybe they would have won a different division in a different conference. Having to play the Cowboys and the Eagles twice, especially the Eagles this year, was tough. A coach of the year candidate over there for their head coach in Sirianni. But the low expectations and how they've just surpassed everything was thrown to them. And the savvy decision making, such as week 1 beating the Titans on a 2-point conversion. That I think his resume this year that he built should get a lot of recognition. And for me, that's what stood out the most was what did I think going into the season? How are they now at the end of the season? Why did that happen? The Giants were the leading team for me of answering those questions, and Brian Daboll was the guy that led that charge.
Awesome. Yeah. Cheers to Brian Daboll. And you're right. I mean, there's just there's a lot of exceeded expectations for the Giants this year, especially with the injury that Barkley had gone through. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone expected him to be on the level that he is right now. For me, for certain injuries, we've seen it too many times when players are just never the same. So, yeah, I'm sure he has a lot to do with that, and just the philosophy he's bringing to the team, which, has a lot of talent already.
Definitely. I feel like teams are really respecting the Giants now when they go in to play them. And you got to account for the guy calling the shots. I believe I actually misspoke. He wasn't part of the class that was hired with Staley and Bob Saleh, but he was beat heavily during that season. This was his first year as a head coach. So, first year head coach, leading the Giants from the biggest market in sports with the highest amount of attention and eyeballs on them to the playoffs. So that is my coach of the year, and that wraps up our awards that we decided to hand out this week. So we'll move on to the playoff picture. Just kind of give a quick rundown of how it's looking so far going into this weekend, which is the super wildcard weekend now with the number 7 seeds being added to each conference. Slava said earlier, it all kicks off with the Niners and Seahawks from the NFC division rival. I think it's also important to note that every single one of these games this weekend is a rematch from the regular season. So I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. So we're going to see which teams learn from their first meetings and which teams just can't get over the hump of beating these guys. So Niners, Seahawks, and Chargers, Jaguars on Saturday. Sunday morning, we got Dolphins, Bills, followed by Giants, Vikings, and finishing off with Sunday Night Football of Bengals and Ravens. And then Monday Night Football, of course, you got the Cowboys and Buccaneers. I figured that was going to be the Monday Night Football game, being that the Monday Night Football crew with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman calling the game, they just, love Tommy and Dallas Cowboys. So I think we're in for a pretty action-packed weekend, to be honest. I wasn't really feeling some of these matchups at first, but the more the week has gone on, the anticipation's grown for me with these matchups, and then also realizing how close some of these games were during the season, I think has some serious potential to see a lot of fireworks and some close games this weekend.
Hey, Feel the Burn. Just one thing I wanted to mention. It's it's news that I found out about today. But the Raiders, Derek Carr. So I read that they have made an ultimatum where either he'll be traded or they'll be releasing him this season. Did you hear about that?
Interesting. I saw that he posted a goodbye message to Raider Nation. Don't know how well that's going to be received, to be honest. Seems like it's a love-hate situation even within Raider Nation on Carr. He obviously cared a lot about being a Raider. It really, depending on how you look at that, we could be fans and clown on them because it's the Raiders. But it does kind of suck that he didn't get to accomplish what he wanted to with that team because he really put a lot of heart and soul into it.
He did.
However, business is business, right? I don't think he's worth the money that he was going to be guaranteed into. So from a business perspective, it makes sense to cut ties and move on. I really don't know what the trade market would look like for him. But there are a lot of vacancies at the quarterback position around the league, and he is not a bad quarterback. Contrary to popular belief, he is not bad.
He's not the worst. He's not the worst, but he's definitely not the best. I don't necessarily see him being offered like a starting position, in the league right now. If you could choose a team, if you were to choose a team that you think may have a use for his skill set, where would you think he would go?
Jeez, put me on the spot. My first thought just now was Tennessee. Okay. I don't know how much Tannehill has left. I think that would be a pretty good spot for him, would be Tennessee.
But you know what? Dobbs hasn't done too bad in the games he's played in. So, I feel like he's got time to develop. He hasn't really been given a shot quite yet.
Yeah, Dobbs, I feel like, has been kind of like, he's just bouncing, kind of like Tyrod Taylor a little bit. And he's finally got a shot. Didn't work out for him, obviously, because they missed the playoffs. But I think Carr would do enough to take that team back to, because they're not far removed from being the number 1 seed in the conference. That was just last year with Tannehill. And I think it's safe to say Carr's a better quarterback than Tannehill. at least from my perspective. I think he would definitely take that team over the top. But that's in the same conference as the Raiders, so I don't know if they would trade him. In terms of NFC, maybe Commanders. That could be a spot for him.
True, definitely.
Commanders. That's a cross country for him and his family, but at this point in his career, like he's gonna have to find any spot he can, where he fit in. That could be a landing spot for him too.
Yeah, definitely, possibly.
What are your thoughts on it? Where do you think he's gonna go?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't think that any team is gonna be reaching for him to start at this time. Mm-hmm. Maybe teams that are rebuilding, like the Commanders, would have a use for him, or maybe like the Rams, teams like that.
Ooh, interesting.
Teams that they didn't really perform that well this season. I think they'll be looking for someone to fill a spot, because that's, if they didn't perform well, that's probably one of the obvious pain points is the quarterback position. And who knows, maybe in a different offense, in a different system, maybe he can perform better. But the biggest hang-up for me is that he was surrounded by so much talent in Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, where, it's like you've got all the weapons and you're still not getting the job done. So, and as I've said before, like I really like the guy's character. He's a great leader and stuff like that, but he just hasn't gotten it done. So it's like, what more can you do to help the guy out?
It felt like that organization, and I'm not speaking on like the front office or anything, but like that team with Carr was kind of like a dog chasing its tail for his tenure there, where like they couldn't really get it all connected. Whether it was the offense didn't have enough, they were hurt, but the defense was good, or the defense was not good and the offense was great and they would blow leads. So it's just a roundabout, every year it seemed like, where they couldn't get right. And the one season they did last year, they were fairly healthy and the defense did just enough to hold on to some games, and this year they didn't. I think they had the most one-score losses in football, I believe, or the most double-digit blown losses in the second half of games. Like, it was incredible.
Oh, God.
It was. But even with that too, it was like the defense blew it, or the offense couldn't score points in the second half. So, just a dog chasing its tail, and they couldn't quite get it
right. Yeah, that's a great analogy for that. Yeah, well, either way, wherever he ends up, if he does end up anywhere, wish him the best. But it'll be interesting to see who takes that position next season. Because I know they're going to be coming for it all.
Absolutely. So before you head out, I wanted to know. I know you have to jump off here real quick. What matchup this weekend for the playoffs are you looking forward to most, if you had to say?
Shoot, man, that's tough. I would say probably the Niners and the Seahawks.
Okay.
Just like Slava mentioned earlier, the Niners are dealing with a rookie quarterback, but they're also dealing with the best defense in the league. In addition to that, Purdy's got a lot of help. He's got CMC, he's got Kittle, he's got Debo. There's a lot of guys there that can help him out. So, it's not like he's going to have to put the game on his back. I imagine they're going to come out firing with CMC heavy. It's probably going to get, upwards of 20 touches this weekend. So, in addition to that, Geno, he's having probably the best season of his career. I know he's been around for a long time, but never has he been in this position. And he's got Lockett, he's got Metcalf, and then Walker. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. if it's just going to be like the defense versus the offense type game, but the Niners have a little bit of an edge with so much talent on their offense as well. So yeah, but yeah, that's the game I'm looking forward to the most.
Got it. Yeah. I think if Lamar Jackson was playing, mine would be Bengals Ravens. But since he's going to be out this weekend, I'm going to have to go Chargers. I like that quarterback matchup between, I guess, Sunshine and Sunshine Light, however you look at it. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert.
Right.
Both, top QBs out of college, early round draft picks. Trevor was number 1. Herbert was 6 in their respective drafts. First taste of the playoffs for both of them. Their week 3 matchup, I believe, was not a close one. The Jaguars, beat them pretty handily in SoFi. However, the context behind that, you have to look at that as well and factor that in. Herbert was coming off the game in Kansas City with the broken or the ruptured rib cartilage. And in that game, I believe is the one that he lost Joey Bosa in. Rashawn Slater got hurt. I believe Mike Williams might have gotten hurt in that game too. Didn't have Keenan Allen. And, it looks like all that's changed to this weekend, except for Slater. Slater's still out. So I'm hoping I'm expecting a shootout. I'm expecting a close game. You got 2 head coaches that are pretty polarizing with, Doug Peterson and Brandon Staley. So I'm expecting some fireworks down there in Duval this weekend for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a hot matchup for sure. I know you talked about the Jaguars all season, and the way that the Jaguars have been heating up with Ingram, Christian Kirk was on fire the last game against the Titans. They have their elite running back in Etienne. So, yeah, it's going to be a shootout, and it's going to be a really fun matchup, too. Definitely looking forward to that. Strong second for me.
Yeah, that one's going to be explosive, for all the reasons you gave, too. So, that'll do it for our football portion of our show tonight. Thank you, Soul Controller. I know you got to get out of here. So, you got that time.
Thanks, guys.
Against it, but appreciate it. We'll see you next week, bud.
All right, man. Take care, guys.
And now we transition into the MMA world with our own source of glory. You and I were chatting about, what we wanted to do tonight on here. So, take it away. What do you got for us?
Sir. Thanks for the burn. Tonight is going to be a very special segment. We'll get to the special part towards the end, but I wanted to start off Feel the Burn with this Saturday's fight card. It's a pretty good fight card. It's going to be exciting. I just wanted to, point out the ones that I suggest people should watch. The main event is a middleweight bout between Sean Strickland versus Nasruddin Imavov. Originally, it was supposed to be, I believe, Sean Strickland versus Kelvin Gastelum, an OC native. But I think he hurt himself somehow. I forgot. I think it could be a rib injury or something like that. But regardless, the replacement for this fight is amazing. Nasruddin Imavov is a Russian who grew up in France. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. His notable wins are against Joaquin Buckley, Edmund Shabazian, Sean Strickland. As you may or may not know, his 2 recent losses were against Jared Cannonier and the very, very scary man Alex Pereira. That Amazonian warrior with the mask on that beat Israel Adesanya. Definitely a must watch. Sean Strickland is a consummate trash talker. He has no filter during very confident in himself. His style is, I would say, it's very similar to the Diaz brothers. If you guys are familiar with the Diaz brothers, he's a pressure fighter. He walks forward. He's a brawler. He doesn't really throw many kicks. I know he has some sort of wrestling pedigree, but he even in the gym, it's pretty interesting. There's definitely footage of him beating up his own teammates during sparring sessions, which is pretty hilarious. It's not very respected, in the fight world, but he just loves to fight. He loves to beat people up. I'm pretty sure he would try to kill somebody if he had to. But yeah, the guy's kind of a psychopath. He's kind of a psycho. Kind of got some screws loose in his head. But
it's never bad for a fighter, right?
No, not at all, man. Very entertaining. Very entertaining. It's a pretty small card. There's not too many big names on the card, but he is much must-watch TV. He's super entertaining. He talks to his opponents during his fights. He just loves to beat people up. But on the flip side, his opponent is on a 5-fight winning streak. He is very big for the weight class. He has very good distance control, good range. He's very evasive, and he's very accurate with his hands. I think Strickland will have a very tough time with him because he has range, he's lengthy, and he's very, very accurate. In most of the highlights that I've watched, he seems to just land most of his shots, and a lot of them are straight punches. If he tries to get taken down, if he fights a wrestler, he has excellent takedown defense. He's very versatile. I think the odds he's minus 125. So I think people are kind of rooting for Imamov. I think he's probably
a lot of money on him, right?
Yeah, a lot of money on him. So that's a must-watch fight. I got three other fights that you got. Hawaii native, 3-fight losing streak. Fortunately, notable fights. He has a loss against Josh Emmett, the Korean Zombie. Calvin Cater, who lost twice against Max Holloway, and he has a win against Edson Barbosa, which I didn't even know about. So, he's a legendary fighter. I don't really know anything about Damon Jackson, to be honest. That's his opponent, but I'm pretty sure Dan Ige is going to win because I'm kind of biased. So he's a minus 135. Dan Ige is probably going to win that fight. Damon Jackson has one notable fight against Ilya Topuria. He's kind of coming up right now, good striking. He's known for his kind of back and forth trash talk with Paddy Pimblett, the guy from the UK with the bowl cut. It's like Macaulay Culkin. That should be interesting. I also wanted to point out the fight with Umar Nurmagomedov. These odds are ridiculous. He's minus 950, and
Jeez.
I'm pretty sure. Well, he's got the last name. Everybody knows who Khabib is. Khabib is one of the greatest fighters, definitely future Hall of Famer, or I think he's already in the Hall of Fame. So he's his cousin. But what's interesting about Umar is he does have a wrestling pedigree. He clearly wrestles with Islam, that whole Russian, crew, that family. But he's very well known for his kicks. He has a very quick release on his kicks. He can throw leg kicks, in a split second. He can throw it up to the head extremely fast. But from the highlights that I've seen, he hasn't really needed to use his wrestling at all, which is kind of strange because that's what they're known for, and he's undefeated. I watched the press conference the other day, and he even mentioned himself He's been trying to get fights. He's been trying to talk to Sean Shelby, who's the matchmaker at the UFC, and nobody wants to fight him. Everybody's turning down fights. So, Umar was just like, give me an unranked fighter, and he's fighting this guy I'm not even familiar with, Rayoni Barcelos from Brazil. That guy's probably going to lose. So there you go. That's a good fight to watch. And the last fight I wanted to mention is from my motherland. His name is Punahele Soriano. He's minus 135. Kind of new in the UFC. He's coming up. Has a couple of losses, but his most recent fight was a win against a gentleman named Dalcha Lungiambula. I think I pronounced that correctly. I hope so. But
spot on.
I'm yeah. Thanks, Philibert. Thank you, man. I'm trying.
Yes, absolutely. No, you nailed that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So yeah, from what I've seen by Punahele, he is huge for the middleweight division. He's ginormous. He could even be a light heavyweight if he wanted to. He probably walks around like 200, 210, cuts down to 185. This guy's got power in his hands. He's lost a couple fights, but the fights that he has won were by knockout, and they were just brutal, straight crosses to the jaw. And I'm biased. He's Filipino. He's a Hawaii native, so I'm rooting for him. But yeah, all of these fights are the ones that I would suggest to watch. They should be fireworks. And it'll be this Saturday, which is the 14th, UFC Fight Night. It'll be free if I think you have UFC Fight Pass, so check it out. Moving on, we have a special Dana White.
Oh yeah!
If you got heard, he had a incident on New Year's. Love that picture. That's rough, man. So Dana White, he was captured by some sort of, I think it was TMZ or something like that, slapping his wife, and his wife slapped him back, and then he slapped his wife again, and this was on New Year's Eve in Cabo San Lucas. And I wanted to talk about this because initially, when I first heard about it, it was when he came out during the press conference for this weekend's fight. And I actually initially was very impressed that he came out and, kind of aired out his grievances and, had the balls to open up about it and be vulnerable and transparent. And I was like, oh, that's pretty respectable, pretty admirable by him. But then I was watching, MMA fighting, and I was watching some of the, top podcasters out there like Ariel Helwani, and they brought a different perspective. And they were saying stuff like, because, let me start over, because Dana was basically saying, don't defend me. This is about the fighters. This fight is for them. They put in the work. I don't want the spotlight to be on me. And the part that stood out was he said, my punishment is having to wake up every day and having to deal with the repercussions in my mind. And what Ariel said was, is that, really a punishment that is that he deserves? Because most people, especially in show business, would get canceled within a matter of days, right? That came out. If that happened to anybody else, they would get canceled. They get reprimanded. So I wanted to ask you, Phil the Burn, what do you think about that, man? I mean, it's clearly not okay to put your hands on a woman. Absolutely, 100%. We all agree on that. What are your thoughts about that?
So, I guess there's a lot to really digest with this situation. And that's just in terms of like different ways to look at this. The domestic violence is awful. It's definitely something that's plaguing our society, since the beginning of time. In terms of like him coming out and attempting to own up to it, we don't see that often or until after like a punishment has been handed down. You normally get the status quo of like, I'm sorry and this and that, but it's like I said, it's usually after the fact of like seeing the backlash and all that. So him trying to get ahead of it, like you said, you could applaud that for sure. He definitely then, because I was just reading up on it and asking, what should his punishment be? Like, what happens if I take 30 days off? What does that do? How does that hurt me? Like, any reference to COVID as like, I could sit that out. Like, it's not, it hurts the company, employees. This is a quote from him. Me leaving hurts the company, hurts my employees, hurts the fighters, doesn't hurt me. Do I need to reflect? I've been against this. I've owned this. I'm telling you that I'm wrong. It is kind of shocking to read that, now Helwani is correct. Like, there's a privilege there. Like, did he come out and try to get ahead of this and own up to it because he knows he can? Because, I think when we were talking about this, it was brought up the quote, Dana White privilege, which is, that was a pretty powerful, statement that was relayed when we were talking about this, behind the scenes. I could definitely see that, like he knows he's quote unquote untouchable, or feels that way. So, how genuine was that? How genuine is he of really owning up to what he did and showing and speaking about remorse? That's a valid question that we always ask of those, polarizing figures, of those celebrities, if you will, in our society. Like, how do we know he's being genuine? How do we know these people are being genuine when they're apologizing? Like, they got enough money, they don't need to struggle, unless it is internal. So he then later, furthered his quote with his punishment. He says, here's my punishment. I have to walk around for however long I live, and this is how I'm labeled now. My other punishment is that I'm sure a lot of people, whether it be the media, fighters, friends, acquaintances who had respect for me, might not have respect for me now. There's a lot of things I have to deal with the rest of my life. That's way more of a punishment than what I take a 30-day or 60-day. That quote is accurate. No matter what he does now going forward, he's always going to have some sort of backlash towards him, of being a wife beater. Now, how loud that is, how loud the volume of that outcry is, will dwindle for sure. But there will be a constant buzz, like when you have, I don't know if you've experienced it or not, but like I have tinnitus in my ears, right? And sometimes when I'm sitting around or I'm doing something, I hear that buzzing and it's super annoying, but the different tone varies, right? Based on just, I don't know the science behind it, but man, there's some times where I can barely hear it. It's very faint. And there's other times where it's like, this is giving me a headache. I think that's something similar that Dana White is going to be going through. Right now, it's going to be that like headache. People are going to always bring it up. People are going to talk about it, and him trying to put the focus on the fighters is commendable, because it's UFC. It's a fighting company, so it should be on the fighters, especially with a weekend like this with the fight card coming up. But I do think over time it's going to end up being that faint, buzzing in your ear or in his ear, and I think there's something to be said for that, of that being a punishment that he has to live, ringing in his ears of his actions.
What's funny? Two things. I think he actually has tinnitus as well, which is crazy that yeah, I'm not.
It's very common, dude. Okay.
that's something that he's talked about publicly. And two, you know, even if he does, you know, even if the public does believe that he deserves more punishment, I think that is pretty tough punishment, having to walk around with that stigma, that label all over your face for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
if it really affects him, sure, yeah, absolutely,
yeah. But yeah, it's absolutely not cool to place your hands on a woman. But she also slapped him too. So what do you think about that?
So that's the other part of this, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly, she hit him first, and then that gets to a very you get a very sticky situation there. Like, at what point, is it like never lay hands on a woman? 'Cause that's what I heard growing up, right? What if I'm actually getting my ass whooped? I'm just gonna get my ass whooped and not defend myself.
Right.
There comes a point too where it's like, that's a general statement that I don't think applies to every situation. With this one particularly, the size of Dana White definitely plays a factor in this too.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, oh, man, it's hard. Like, I've fortunately have not been in this situation, but there's a part of me that also says that, how long would I sit there and just take it? How long is too long? How long is enough before I fight back? And that's something that's really tough nowadays. And you hear a lot of stuff about equality and all this, this empowerment stuff as well, like the empowerment movement, women's rights. That's very loud, very prominent. To me, equality is equal. Personally, and this is just me talking. Like, I at some point have to defend myself.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there getting hit, punched, beat, slapped because I just refuse to hit back, if I literally cannot do anything but sit there and take it, like, what me, like, there at some point it's like I have to do something. But right. I'm also not a big guy either. I'm not a big guy. I'm not Dana White size, But again, I guess my best advice for stuff like this is, like, just to make sure you find a compatible partner to where you're not going to get into a situation like this,
Exactly.
They've been married 27 years, 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like, I've been married 13, and I'm like, geez, like, this also too did not seem like this was the first time that's happened.
I'm sure. Exactly.
From, like, who knows what's been happening behind closed doors. And that's also the scary part about this too. This is a tough one. Because I was raised, you never lay your hands on a woman, but then it's like, okay, so I guess I'm just going to sit here and take an ass whooping, whether I deserve it or not. Like, and that as I've gotten older, kind of like, it's been like, wait a minute, there's some females that could scrap,
Exactly.
I definitely can get my ass whooped by some women, dude.
Yeah. Now that you mention that, I mean, clearly, if you look at the picture, Dana White is huge, and he's the face of the UFC. He probably knows how to fight somewhat. His wife is kind of puny. I think what he could have done is maybe, like, put her in like a hold, maybe in like a hug or something, and just kind of just like
start kissing her. Like, yeah, right. Just
that's exactly. Started making
just kill her with love, dude. Yeah, just try. Oh, that's tough, man. The heat of the moment, like, though, too. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, that's the kicker. Is I think he just reacted, and he was probably drunk or intoxicated or something like that. But I mean, on the flip side, if you have, I think the only exception. This may be controversial. I'm just going to say it. The only exception is if you're a fighter and your wife is a fighter, right? And she's as big as you, maybe bigger, it might be okay to, like, throw a jab to the chest, maybe, or a kick to the chest just to kind of push her away. or something like that. But for just a petite woman who has no fighting experience, like the best thing that you can do is probably just, hug her, control her arms, keep her in control. I don't think it's okay to smack her, point blank. But
yeah,
but you made a good point though. You everything you said was well articulated, man.
Yeah, and it's hard to articulate these things in our climate. Like, but this is a real thing, though. Like, what am I gonna do? Just getting slapped. I'm gonna try to walk away for sure, but like, I'm gonna try and remove myself from the situation. But what if I can't?
Yeah.
Situation Dana could, but this is his wife too. Like, you got to go home.
Yeah,
man, that's unfortunate. It's super unfortunate. I really hope that, both parties can come away, better from this, and stronger from this as a unit, because, for as much, like I said, domestic violence is a part of our culture, unfortunately, and it's been going on for since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And divorce is always a high, ratio in our country as well. And that's not something that should be happening either. Like, when you make that commitment, you hopefully will see it through and it stays that way. But, obviously that doesn't always happen, and it's sad. And so, hopefully it doesn't go that route for these two. But I hope they can find some peace together, and this is the last time that happens, It's in front of the cameras or, behind closed doors.
Absolutely. And you know what, man, I love it. It's clear that you are a great husband and a great father. based on everything that you said, man. I appreciate it. You took everything out of my mouth, bro.
From that too, it's like, talked about this with, my wife and my kids. Like if you're gonna throw the first punch, you better make it count. Like, don't throw the first punch. I always say, never throw the first punch in any situation. That because you're always going to be able to fall back on that. Like, he hit me first or they hit me first. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you got to hit first, you better make it count. Because you never, after you throw that first punch, all bets are off. You never know what's going to happen, right? But try and find a situation, try and find scenarios where you don't have to throw a punch at all. So,
right. Thank you, Feel the Burn. That was so well articulated, man. I appreciate the feedback.
I try, and it's tough, man. Like I said.
Yeah, 13 years married, I think you said.
Yeah, 13 years, going strong. 13 years this year, so.
Yikes. I lasted 11 months. Anyways,
hey.
Let's get to something very important to me specifically, I'm sure to the whole MMA community, but as you may know, the prodigy from One Championship, Victoria Lee, had passed away last week, and she was undefeated. She comes from a fighting family. Her older sister fights in One FC, and her older brother Christian is, I think, a double champ. I'm not sure. I don't really follow One that much, but I know they are a family of winners. And there's really not much to say about this. I think because there's speculation. I don't think it's been confirmed that the cause of death has not been confirmed, but what I did hear was it could have been a suicide, and clearly the family's distraught. They closed their MMA gym because of this, and why wouldn't you, right? Your youngest daughter, your prodigy, potentially killed herself, and that is anyone's worst nightmare, and just to share, my own personal experience. I've dealt with mental health issues most of my life. I dealt with a divorce, and I'm gonna be a little transparent as well. I don't care, because people need to hear this. I survived a suicide attempt because of my divorce, and I was in such a bad place that I decided to really go for it, and when I survived, I'm not going to go into detail, but when I survived, I didn't think I was going to survive, and I did. I woke up, survived. I found purpose. I found it. I rekindled my faith in a higher power. Doesn't matter what denomination it is, but life is precious, man. You have kids yourself, and the past couple of days I've been going through my own stuff, and she's been on the back of my mind a lot, and it's really been reminding me to be present. I posted something on Instagram. I had a moment with my dog that made me cry. All right, made me cry, bro. Man. And it was so euphoric because I pulled out a black light, and he had no idea what the heck it was. I turned everything off. I turned off all the lights, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna mess with my dog, right? So I'm just like flashing this black light in his face, and he's like, what the heck? So he's chasing it around, and we sit in bed, and he's scratching it. He's so cute. He's adorable. He's just scratching it. And I was watching him, and like Victoria came to my mind, and I was like everything just came together, and I was like, wow, all that matters is this present moment. And it's cheesy, it's cliche. They call the present because it's a gift, right? But it is absolutely true. It is so true. Nothing else matters except this present moment. And as somebody who has gone through a lot of mental health issues, depression, gone to therapy and whatnot, I'm always finding myself looking for different ways to fix myself. Like I feel like I need to be fixed, and I'm trying to like read different books and even trying to get back into ancient texts and whatnot. But one book that stood out to me, and I know this is a sports podcast, but I want to dedicate this to Victoria. One book that has been very powerful and effective in my life is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I'm not sure if you've read that, but really the premise is just about being in the present moment, finding ways to remind yourself to be in the present moment, because tomorrow is not promised, man. Like she was on her way up, up the ladder, and she was only 17, 18. I'm not really sure how old she was when she passed, but like, what the heck, man? Like, what is there to say about that? That is horrifying. Like, her family is going to have to live with that tragedy for the rest of their lives. Like, how could you even compete? Like, it's unbelievable. How do you feel about that, Philip?
Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you for sharing. It's powerful to hear people's stories going through trauma like that, and dealing with those issues, because it's a constant reminder. Like, we can try and live in fairy tale worlds where we don't feel any pain, right? We don't feel sadness. We don't get depressed. Like, some people walk through life that way, and whether it's because they don't recognize it or whatnot, is irrelevant. But these are constant reminders of like people struggle through life. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing that and getting vulnerable like that, especially obviously on camera. Stuff like this, hearing stories like you shared, brings up something for me that I've struggled with my entire life. And I love asking this question more and more as I get older, is why me, right? When I reflect on stuff like this, it's like, well, why is this person gone and I'm here, right? Recently, I had a death close to one of my other families, because I feel like we all have different villages that we live in, and we all have different families and stuff, and sometimes they commingle, sometimes they don't. But this is like my Little League baseball family, where my kids are playing.
Gotcha.
And we had a death recently, and it's the question that pops in my head is like, why me? Why am I here and they're not? Why are they gone and I'm here? And then we also ask that when something bad happens, like, how come this is happening to me, right? So the answer that I always tell myself is there's got to be a reason, right? There's got to be a reason why this is happening, and that's where the kind of like let go, let God saying comes and pops in my head, because there's a plan, right? That's what we give ourselves up to. Whatever faith you believe, whatever higher power or spirituality or whatever thing that makes us feel whole and that we turn to, we can say that there's a plan. Someone has a plan for us, right? Some entity has a plan for us. And that, like, the spirituality part of that is what I reflect on. But it's hard to think that way. It's hard to like really try and get into your feelings, I feel like. And it took me a long time to ask myself those questions and continue the conversation internally. I'm not good with faith. I'm not good with like connecting with myself. But the more I've gotten older, the more I've tried to. I don't understand. I never understood why things happen. And I feel like that's a fault of my own. But I don't think it's like self-inflicted or any of that, but like it's just something that I've just never, I just can't grasp it, From the family side and the parent side that you brought up, of they close their gym. This is something they have to live with and they have to deal with. That is tough. Having kids of my own, I can't even imagine what they're going through. That's you take one hat off, put the other one on, then you're thinking about from the fight game. I had not heard of Victoria Lee until our group chat brought this up this week. And then you gave me a rundown and we kind of talked about it a little bit offline. The deaths of young individuals, young people, young athletes, young scholars, all that. The amount of promise that you can see in certain people it makes it gutting when they pass. They're no longer with us. Not being able to see the potential of this young lady fighting through the ranks of accomplishing her dream. Getting to the next stage, getting to the mountaintop, which I feel like based on our conversations, sky was the limit, right, with her and her potential.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's gutting, when we don't get to see the development and the blossoming of that talent, into greatness and getting solidified amongst the greats. Because you never know when you're going to see greatness like that, I feel like whenever we're watching athletes while they're performing, like while they're doing it during their careers, we take it for granted every time almost. It seems like to me, like we always try to find ways to slight people. We always try to find ways to not appreciate it because of the prior greats, Right. We're seeing it with LeBron right now. We saw it with Kobe. As much as people want to not say that they didn't, it happened with Kobe. It happened with Shaq. It happened with Tom Brady. It's happening now with Tom Brady. So, like, to see someone that possibly could have gotten to that status, and we're not going to be able to see, it is sad. Yeah, it's incredibly sad. So my thoughts, my prayers, my vibes, my heart goes out to the Lee family. I'm hoping they can eventually find peace and be able to, push through. I hope that doesn't sound insensitive, but I hope they can find peace.
Yeah, likewise, man. I hope so too. And there really isn't, from somebody that's gone through it, there's not like a clear-cut solution for these kinds of things. I mean, like,
there's no textbook, right? There's no manual. There's no instructions we get to follow to deal with stuff like this, right?
Not at all, man. And I got lucky, like, point blank. I got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I was already like at the doorstep, if you know what I mean. And and then I woke up and I was at the doorstep, but I didn't go through the door.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to be able to walk away from the doorstep and continue a life with my family, and they love me, they support me. I even it's crazy how this universe works, man. Like I've always wanted a dog, right? And my parents are super Asian and they don't like dogs. And after I survived that, I got my first dog, this guy, George, and he is amazing. What up, George? He's the light of my life, man. And it's like, it's weird, it's some of these things that happen in the universe and life are just so like synchronicity, like I don't really know how to use that word in a sentence, but I know what it means. And it's just weird how these things happen. But like you said, man, when something like what happened to Victoria happened, you kind of question, you resort to that age-old question of like, why does God allow good people to suffer, right? And it's like, beats me, man. I have no idea. And why me? Why am I still here? Is it because maybe it's because I'm articulate enough to tell a story, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm here talking about it. Maybe I'm here to, maybe this podcast will eventually give me, a way to reach out to people that need to hear it, because I've been an addict in my past. I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm trying to provide that reasoning of like, okay, why am I here? Maybe it's because,
absolutely.
I dealt with a divorce. I, was addicted to prescription pills, or, I was addicted to porn, and, all these things that I've dealt with and I've tried to overcome. Coincidentally, there have been people that have gone through the same thing and I've been able to help them. So maybe that's why I'm here, and now that, we're here on this podcast together and we have a team that we're all like-minded. Maybe we could really, maybe I'm part of this team for a reason. Maybe we could really reach out to some people that do need help, and we can make people smile with these sports segments. And, I know Jerizi and you and Soul Controller and the other guys are bringing in some really cool guests on those interviews, and who knows, man, I think we'll help a lot of people and open some eyes. So bottom line is, if you're going through depression, reach out to somebody that understands. I think that's the best thing you can do. Find somebody that's been through it and try to get some help, because my family didn't have the answers, right? But after I survived, I was able to reach out to people that have been through it and was able to get some perspective. So if you're going through it, find somebody that understands, find somebody that has some history and has some insight, and try to get some help. And that's pretty much it. And same for me. My prayers go out to the family. And for anybody that's listening, be present. if you're with your family watching this right now and your kids are around you, your dogs are around you, give them a hug. Tell them how much you love them. Even if you're not the kind of person that likes to that's able to express those things, remember, try to remind yourself that anything can happen within the next 5 minutes, 20 minutes, tomorrow, a couple weeks. Just cherish these people around you, point blank.
Hey, well said, Source. I appreciate that. And
sir,
yeah, that's there's two key words you said when you were recapping there at the end and closing. You said reach out. So obviously, the cave here, all of us, we all support everyone finding their peace, finding their purpose. Reach out if you need to. I feel like that's one of the perks of this cave community that we're trying to create.
Yes.
It's togetherness and connections, because we are a community here. So if you are watching this, we hope that we were able to provide you some sort of escape, if you will, listening to some recaps of some sports, some of our thoughts, and our well wishes, here at the end, kind of somber closing. I feel like there's been quite a few deaths or sad stories we've had to recap in the sports world recently. But however, we're still here. We're trying to do our best to put out our best. And we're happy that you were able to join us tonight. For those of you that are listening, or if you're going to be listening to this in the future, reach out, and ways you can reach out to us are through our Discord, Twitch, Instagram. Look out for our pods that we drop weekly, Facebook. We have our website as well. So on that note, signing off here from this week. The banner at the bottom has all the details. Source, thank you very much for coming on.
One more thing.
You got anything closing?
Yeah, you know what? I know it was going to end on a little bit of a somber note, but in order to, in hopes of celebrating her life, go watch her highlights. Her highlights are amazing. Her highlights, her brother's highlights, her sister's highlights. Go and watch that greatness that Phil DeBurn mentioned, man, because greatness is unavoidable when you see it. It's undeniable, and the work that their family put into that gym, into their children, is undeniable. She was 17, 18, 19. So, of course we want to mourn and show some grief and show some mourning, but we also want to celebrate the lives of these people that passed too soon. And a good way of doing that is just, watching her greatness, watching the fruits of her labor. So yeah, that's all I had to say.
I appreciate that for sure. That's definitely the best thing we can do in people's passings is spread the word on them and share their message or their performances that they put forward for us. So again, reach out if you need to. We're happy. If you're watching tonight, keep watching. We'll be back next week. Source Glory, thank you very much. Soul Controller, shout out to you, bud. Appreciate it. Abra, get better. We'll get some. We'll get the regularly scheduled programming next week, hopefully. Signing off. Be easy, everybody.
You too.